Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zing here, and today I'm back with another individual Pokemon analysis. This one is on Hydreigon, which was pretty highly requested. Of course, this is part of my series where I analyze a Pokemon in the VGC 2015 format and tell you everything you need to know about that Pokemon. If you want to check out some of the other ones on Cresselia, Kangaskhan, Thundurus, Bisharp, and Sylveon, I'll link those in the description below in a playlist. As always, if you enjoyed the series, please show your support by leaving a like on the video and giving me any feedback. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, let's just jump into it. So first, look at its base stats, 92 HP, 105 attack, 90 defense, 125 special attack, 90 special defense, and 98 speed, for a total of 600, which is pretty solid. Now, special attack is obviously its highest stat, and that's the one you're going to be utilizing the most. Pretty decent defenses of 92, 90, 90, not amazing, but still allows you to survive basically most attacks that aren't super effective. 105 attack unfortunately goes to waste, because obviously you're not going to be using physical type attacks with Hydreigon. And 98 speed is kind of awkward because it's slower than those base 100s like Charizard and Kangaskhan, but nonetheless still really solid because it allows you to outspeed the majority of the format. So why use Hydreigon? First of all, it's one of the strongest dragon-type Pokemon in the format. Pokemon like Garchomp are often popular because they're physical and they get access moves like Rock Slide, but Hydreigon is my favorite special dragon. Latios was really popular back in 2012 and 2013, though you really use Latios for different reasons. Latios is really used to maybe set up Tailwind or get a really fast Draco Meteor off, whereas Hydreigon kind of relies on its typing and its diverse move pool. So because Hydreigon is Dark and Dragon, you do get access to Stab, Dark Pulse, and a Stab Dragon type attack, and the Stab Dark Pulse is really one of its main selling points. Pokemon like Cresselia and Aegislash are often really difficult to take care of, but for a Pokemon like Hydreigon, it easily to hit KOs this kind of Pokemon at worst. So Stab Dark Pulse is fantastic, and Dark Pulse is even stronger now in Gen 6 because, types like Steel don't resist it anymore. Hydreigon's also, like I mentioned earlier, got decent natural bulk and speed. It's really easy to fit onto most teams, especially because most teams often look for a Pokemon that isn't weak to ground type. So, you don't want a team that's weak to just a Pokemon spamming Earthquake, and the Levitate there really helps out Hydreigon. And then it's also got fantastic typing and it allows you to wall common Pokemon like Rotom Wash or Rotom Heat. Like, the Rotom forms can't really touch Hydreigon. I actually used Hydreigon in the past because Rotom Pokemon would give me trouble, so I would put a Hydreigon on and know that my Rotom matchup would be improved drastically. So here's some common Hydreigon information for those that may not be familiar with it. It's basically almost always run with Specs, Life Orb, or Scarf. Pretty rare to see any other item. Modest is the most common nature, though occasionally you'll see Timid as well. Always basically expect Draco Meteor and Dark Pulse. Those are basically a given on any Hydreigon set. And then you can expect a combination of Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Earth Power, and Protect. Generally, they are either run with max speed and max special attack or with some bulk, as the spreads I'll show you later goes into. As for move pulls, like I mentioned earlier, you should always expect Draco Meteor and Dark Pulse, but basically a combination of the first 6 attacks are what are most common. Dark Pulse, Draco Meteor, Earth Power, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, and Protect. The choice variants will typically run, the first 2 and then Earth Power, and then either Flamethrower or Fire Blast, depending on whether they want accuracy or more power. I personally like Fire Blast more. And then, of course, if you're not running a choice item, Protect is pretty given too. But Heatwave, Flash Cannon, Dragon Pulse, and Hidden Power, combination of Hidden Powers there, but I would say Ice, those can also give you some nice coverage. Heatwave obviously allowing you to hit both, but the thing is its power is drastically decreased because of the spread damage, so that's why players like to opt for Fire Blast. Flash Cannon actually gives you nice coverage against Fairy types. Dragon Pulse, of course, for 100% super effective accurate moves against other Dragon types, and then Hidden Power as kind of a tech move. And then sometimes you always see Hyper Beam, though that is pretty rare. But Hydreigon's move pool is pretty predictable. Basically, the most common ones run the top 6 moves, and it's pretty rare to see otherwise. So I'm going to give you a bunch of sample sets, and this one's actually was run by Jake MULLER, also known as Major Bowman, who finished in the top 16, I believe, at St. Louis Regionals. He was the first seed going into Top Cut, and he ran a pretty bulky Specs Hydreigon. So he ran 132 special attack and speed, and the 60 HP and 180 defense actually allowed the Hydreigon to survive a Adamant Landorus superpower 100% of the time, which is a pretty cool benchmark, I think. So that's kind of the example of Hydreigons that are built on the bulkier spectrum, but you still have a huge amount of offensive presence with that special attack investment, and of course choice specs and modest. And he ran just your typical set of Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Earth Power. Interestingly enough, he ran Flamethrower over Fire Blast because of the accuracy issues, obviously, and that's something that you have to consider when you're going into a tournament. This next one was built by Jonathan Rankin, also at St. Louis Regionals. He finished in the top 8. This one kind of traded off for a timid nature with more speed because he really wanted to outspeed those Landers Ts without any investment. And then 20 HP and 84 defense allowed it to survive a -1 close combat from Jolly Terrakion, and that's something else you have to consider when you have Hydreigon on your team. For example, if you have an Intimidate user, can make surviving attacks a lot easier on the physical spectrum. So this one's more offensive and speedier as well, opting for less HP and defense, and obviously it's running Timid Nature as well to get the jump on Landers T. So that's something else you might want to consider, and it is a reason to use Timid Nature. He had the same moveset but with Fire Blast over Flamethrower for more offensive presence and for higher damage output. This next one is a typical Life Orb set. This one has Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Earth Power, and Protect, and just max special attack and max speed. I believe Zach Droidcamp, who finished 2nd at St. Louis, just had a set like this. And sometimes you don't really need to go for a bulkier spread. Ryosuke Kosuge, who finished 2nd at Worlds in 2013 and 5th at Worlds last year, he ran just 252 Hydreigon at Worlds, and he said that's because he was really scared of Hydreigons. And the tricky thing about running Hydreigon with like medium speed investment is you have no idea how fast opposing Hydreigons are. So if you're running max speed, at worst you speed tie with them, and that's one of the benefits of running a max speed Hydreigon. And you know, it's perfectly fine running for 252. A lot of the times it's really situational to not be running it, so you know, surviving specific attacks is a very situational thing to build around, and sometimes you just want max damage and speed output. And this one of course has Protect. If you're running Life Orb Hydreigon, you probably should have Protect, and it has Earth Power over Fire Blast or Flamethrower just because ground coverage is amazing, especially against steel types like Bisharp and Heatran. Heatran being basically one of the biggest ones. Being able to OHKO it as opposed to being a 3-hit KOing you maybe with Dark Pulse is a big deal. And finally, this is the Choice Scarf variant I ran in the beginning of the VGC 2015 season, with enough EVs basically to survive a Dragon Claw from Garchomp. Garchomp's not too common, but it's still a decent benchmark. Max special attack for output, and then speed to outspeed anything that's not a Choice Scarf user. Dark Pulse, Draco Meteor, Earth Power, and Fire Blast. I think at this point you should see there is a common trend between all these Hydreigon sets, and it's that most of the times it's very predictable what the Hydreigon's using, although I should have actually mentioned that Tailwind is a possible move on it as well. Not very common, but definitely viable. And so those are 4 sample sets that you can use if you're interested in trying out Hydreigon. Of course, modify the EV spread to your own liking, but definitely try them out depending on the item. So here are a couple of damage calculations that were included in the spreads earlier. With 28 HP and 36 defense, you survive Dragon Claw from Garchomp 100% of the time, which is pretty cool. With Jake's spread earlier, you do survive that Adamant Landers T superpower 100% of the time, which is really important, especially against Choice Scarf Landers, so I thought that was a really neat spread on his end, so credits to him. I'll actually link his report and J-Rank's report in the description below, so you can actually read about how their Hydreigons fit into the overall picture of the team. And then the next 2 are calculations in terms of Earth Power to show the difference between Life Orb and Choice Specs. So with Life Orb and Earth Power against just max HP Mawile, can only one-hit KO 68% of the time, whereas if you have Choice Specs, you KO 100% of the time. Of course, Mawile sometimes likes to run, more bulk, but it just shows the difference in terms of guaranteed KOs as opposed to damage rolls. As for EV spreads, at this point I think it's pretty clear. You either run 252 or invest in some bulk. Like I mentioned earlier, max speed really allows you to play a bit safer against opposing Hydreigon, which is pretty important. The bulk is really situational and for very specific but common attacks, so keep that in mind. And of course, if you have Intimidate, keep that in mind as well, because it makes surviving attacks a lot easier. And finally, whether you're using Hydreigon, or when you're using it, you should really consider whether you think it's worth investing in bulk for damage output and speed. For example, if you play a lot of practice games and realize, wow, like, I'm not really running into the attacks I'm EVing for at all, and I don't really mind, going up against those Pokemon, then sometimes it's just better to get more special attack, because even though the special attack may not matter, a couple of EVs here and there, the damage output often comes into play without you realizing it in games. So, in my opinion, if you have no need for that kind of extra bulk and you're not really facing Pokemon that you EV to survive those attacks from, then you should probably just go with 252 to 252. As for good partners, Hydreigon is incredibly easy to fit onto most teams, like I mentioned in the beginning, because of its typing on Levitate, but Steel-type Pokemon are definitely really popular, even in previous years of VGC. Pokemon like Mega Metagross, Mega Mawile, Aegislash, Heatran, and Bisharp are all very common with Hydreigon, especially because these are all Pokemon that are weak to Earthquake, and Hydreigon is a Pokemon that obviously has Levitate, so it makes Earthquake users think twice before just spamming the attack. But some other common partners are just some of the more common Pokemon in the format, like Landoti, Thundurus, Talonflame, Rotom-Wash, Gengar, Mega Kangaskhan, and Mega Charizard. As a way to beat it, Hydreigon's not a very difficult Pokemon to beat. Chances are you'll have multiple ways to beat it on your team just naturally, but some of my favorite ways to beat it are Fairy-type Pokemon like Sylveon. Sylveon being one of my favorite. Of course, it can get hit by Flash Cannon, but it's not like Flash Cannon's a KO anyway. Sylveon, as a Hydreigon user, is one of the scariest Pokemon you can see in Team Preview because you know it can wall your Draco Meteors and Dark Pulses. Fighting-type Pokemon are also a popular pick. You know, Terrakion, Conkeldurr, Hariyama, which I've used in the past as well, are all great because Draco Meteor is not a KO unlike Conkeldurr and Hariyama, which are bulkier, and Terrakion can just outspeed and KO it. Of course, Dragon-type Pokemon work as well, like Latios, opposing Hydreigons and whatnot. Mega Kangaskhan and Salamence can just get the one-hit KO with, you know, really powerful physical type attacks like Double Edge from Salamence or Kangaskhan, or just Low Kick from Kangaskhan. Overall, strong physical type attacks are fantastic as well, and I think figuring out what the item Hydreigon has is one of the most important things. If you can confirm that it's Scarf or Specs, you know, that allows you to make switches into Pokemon that can resist its attacks, because chances are you'll have a Pokemon that can resist, you know, a Dark type attack or a Dragon type attack, and then you can either force out a switch or just get a KO on it. So when I'm playing against Hydreigon, one of the most important things, and things I'll do immediately, is maybe double protect the first turn to try to scout out the item, see how fast it is relative to its partner and whatnot. And once you figure out what item it has, it does make beating it a lot easier. So, in conclusion, Hydreigon has always been one of the best Dragon types in VGC. It's always done incredibly well at the World Championships. It's top cut basically every year it's been at Worlds. Ray Rizzo won with Hydreigon and his team in both 2011 and 2012, and 2014 last year, like I mentioned, Ryosuke was able to top cut with it. So, in all the years Hydreigon's been around, it's made it to the top level play at the World Championships. And that's because it is incredible to use because of its move pool. And while beating it isn't too difficult, like I mentioned, there's so many different Pokemon and types I beat it, you should still prepare for it because it's just able to do so much damage if it's unchecked. So as with most of these common Pokemon, you know, your primary objective really should be to just KO it before it damages your team too heavily. Because, you know, if you can protect here, make sure you avoid damage with one of your Pokemon and the other can just, you know, bring it under 50% or KO it. That'd be really good. And one of the worst things as a Hydreigon user is if you don't get enough damage output with it, because a lot of the times you just want to get one or two really powerful attacks off before it faints. But if you're having trouble against Pokemon like Cresselia, Rotom, and other Steel types, you should really consider Hydreigon because it's a great Pokemon to put onto teams, and I would definitely recommend testing it because I think it is a fantastic Pokemon to use and it gives you so many options in terms of offense. But yeah, that's it for this analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you found it helpful with your comments. You know, leave a like if you enjoyed it as always. And yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Go check out Road to Ranked if you have not already, and I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, peace.